folks. Chris Daly here. You're doing Jamaican chat, but this is not Jamaican chat. It's Jamaican chat of consequence because we always find Jamaicans doing impactful things throughout the world. And do we have such an impactful person for you tonight? We have Dr. Elaine Douglas Harrison. She studied impact of immigration on our families. Her dynamic book is an outgrowth of her great PhD work, dissertation, that looks at the nexus between how marriage and immigration for Jamaicans um, overlap. So it's a deep and provocative glance at this nexus of where immigration and marriage in Jamaica take place. So lean back, get your favorite drink ready, lean in because she's going to take us on a journey of discovery of how our families really have impacted the way we live. To do the interview this evening is my partner in crime, Janice. Janice, take it away.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Welcome, Dr. Elaine. Let us get to know you first. Can you share with us a little about your Jamaican roots?
Oh, well, I was born near Porus and grew up in Riches. And I always laugh at that because it sounds so funny to me. But yes, I was born in Broadleaf, Manchester. And then my parents were teachers. So they moved to Riches, Clarendon, which is, if you don't know, it's near Spaldings. My big town was Spaldings. And then my next big town, Christiana, then Mandeville, the middle of Jamaica. That's where I grew up. But I went to boarding school in Brownstown to the Servite Convent of the Assumption. And then, and that was my childhood. I have two brothers, one older, one younger. The older one has passed. Both play music.
Ah, okay. What was growing up like for you in a yard? In my
Well,
best patois.
I grew up without electricity, without phone, without running water. And so it was different. And people nowadays might think it was hard, but it was not. I had a very happy childhood. I,
Yeah.
st- I still remember the ice cream bucket. I remember my mother used to make her own sausage on a Saturday evening for Sunday morning breakfast, and a wicked meat pie. And my
Ah.
father was the principal of the primary school, and he had a big fair, I guess 3 times a year. Easter Monday would have been 1st of August, it would have been because that's before independence, and then no Boxing Day. And I used
Mm-hmm.
to love that because the fair was for the children until 6 o'clock, and then the big people would dance. But because it's my parents having the fair, I got to dance. So
Ah.
it was lovely time.
Simpler times, but the best times. Even when I go to Jamaica and I go to country, you know how that goes. It's just simpler, but I think those children are more rooted and grounded. You know, the sense of family. How did your family happen to choose the U.S. for migration?
Well, I'm not a migrant. I am an unintended migrant. I came to America when I was 30 to go to Georgetown University to be an interpreter translator and go back to my teaching job in Jamaica. Here,
Mm.
what happened? I was working when the European communities opened in Kingston. They wanted somebody who could type and knew French. And I had gone to UW and got my degree in French and Spanish. So I started working for them. So I tripped over from being a teacher to being a trilingual, I guess, secretary.
Mm.
Point, whenever we had meetings, we had to bring our interpreters from Mexico and pay them a bag of money. So I thought, why don't I just go do it? So that's how I came up to America alone, left my 3 children with my mother, left my husband at the time, and came up by myself to go to Georgetown University. At the end of the year, just as I finished, it was 1978 I came. 1979 June, my husband sent the 3 children to me.
Mm.
Opened my door and my sister-in-law was there with the 3 children. I didn't even have a job. I walked the pavement and got a job with international associations, and that's why I'm here.
I see. And the fact that your book talks about the migration marriage Jamaican style. This is so apropos. It's kind of like one of your stories. You have quite a few stories or examples in your book, and that's basically it's you too. You can include you in one of them, in one
Well,
of the
it's a bit me because as I say, I came first, and
right.
my husband came 2 years. My children came a year later, and my husband came a year after that. So I came in
Mm-hmm,
78, kids came in 79, husband came in 80.
mm-hmm,
And the reason why it's a bit my story too is that from the migration aspect, because I was working for the international organizations at the time, the spouses could not work. So my husband was here and he could not work. He wasn't allowed to work legally and he didn't want to go to school. So it ended up that I was working and he was going back and forth from Jamaica to here. And, the rest of that is another story because
mm.
I have 4 children and he has a whole lot more. And he's no longer my husband. I'm remarried.
Okay, what adjustments you had to make in the new environment you found yourself?
Well, the
Because
first
from Jamaica to here,
I came to
that's
Washington. I came to Washington,
hmm
D.C., and I came in August. And the fall was magnificent. My mother loved flowers, so I was taking pictures of all the leaves and sending home for her because I didn't
mm,
to visit me. But the first snow was a shock. It fell during the night, and by this time now, I was living with in those days, you couldn't leave with Jamaica with more than $50. I came to America with $50, and I went to Georgetown University. So I'm to tell you that means I took a loan from my cousin in New York. I was working the 20 hours a week that they would allow me. I was doing all kinds of things, and I was living with a French family and taking care of two little girls 12 hours a week. So the
mm,
snow fell during the night, and when I when I looked up in the morning through the window, I was living up in the attic. It was all white. I was in shock. And what happened was I went to school and I didn't realize that the bus doesn't drive on some roads when it snows. So
mm-hmm,
and that you must stand still when it's so cold. So that the big
mm,
thing was I was out there waiting on the bus on the normal bus stop, but it wasn't the snow route. So I was waiting and waiting, and I wasn't moving up and down because I didn't know how to do that. And I walked, you should see the distance. I walked from Georgetown up the road to home. When I got home, my landlady said, come, put your feet in water right away in warm water. You're going to get
get
frostbite.
frustrated. Yeah.
So,
Wow, that was an
those were the
interesting.
adjustments. And I missed my children very, very much, you
I
know.
can
But I
I
had
can
a plan,
imagine.
which is what the women who come here do. They have a plan. And I had a
Yes.
plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then you had a plan from a professional route, but a lot of women they come as domestics, and then that's the plan. At least that was the and that was the plan for my mom because she came as a domestic. Your life calling journey you've obtained a PhD. Tell us how you decided to make that journey, especially that dissertation.
Well, all right. First thing was, as I tell you, I was married at the time. And I was always waiting. I'm very interested about women in Jamaica in general. I was
Mm-hmm.
always kind of pushing my husband first. We met at University of the West Indies. He did history, I did languages. He got a better degree than me because I was always out dancing. And he did his diploma of education after he got his degree. So I was always kind of pushing in my head. So when we got here now, I said to him, all right, you can't work. Go to Howard and do your master's. He didn't want to do that. So while I was married, I was just busy trying to just keep life together.
Mm-hmm.
But then I traveled because I worked for the International Monetary Fund. I went to Africa. I had good jobs. I had nice jobs.
Yeah, that sounds like interesting cultural
Yeah.
experiences.
When the marriage broke up, no, I went with my children to New York and started again at the bottom of the secretarial ladder in the United Nations. Because if I had told them I had a first degree, they were not going to employ me. And my marriage broke up with a bang. So I had to sort of get out of here. I just grabbed my children and ran, got to New York, and started at the UN. And then later
Mhm.
on, went and whispered to the personnel, I have a degree. But
Yeah,
I
but it's
decided,
about getting your foot in the door and
yes,
that
yes,
plan.
yes. And I decided then and there that being in New York, you see, in Washington, the universities were more expensive. In New York City University is really affordable. I decided I was going to start my master's. So I ended up getting three masters. I
Wow.
I was at the UN and I wanted to do women's issues. So when I did the master's in women's issues, I thought, why don't I just do the PhD? And my master's professor was Dr. Mencher. She was wonderful. She gave me the most wonderful recommendation straight into grad school. And that's when
Mhm.
I started. But I didn't want the PhD in order to teach college or anything like that. I wanted to write a book. When I did my master's, my thesis was prevention better than cure. Something like wife beating. It was about wife beating and wife
Yeah.
murder. And I tried to publish it and nobody took me on. So I
Really?
know
Because it
if I
seems like such a timely topic. And what's interesting about domestic violence, it's not just say it's in any socioeconomic grouping, from the
I didn't
working class to the professional class, that
that's right.
happens.
That's right. And it was worldwide. And I did it and I really wanted to publish it because my idea was prevention better than cure. My idea was
Mm-hmm.
to prevent it, right? Because I had been the subject, I had had domestic violence in my marriage. And so prevention, I thought of the ways I could have prevented it. So anyway, nobody published. I thought, if I had a PhD, they might publish it. So no, when I went home one time for holiday, and this man in the district was sick, and his wife was up here in New York, and she didn't come home. And so I asked my father, I said, how can this man be sick and his wife still be in New York? And my father said to me, sometimes when the marriage is not so good in the beginning, when the wife can get away, she gone.
Mm-hmm.
That put a totally different spin on it for me. I began to think it's not just migration, it might have to do with marriage. So,
Mm-hmm.
in order to do the PhD, I really focused more on the migration. The book focuses more on marriage. So the PhD is called um, when Jamaican wives leave their husbands behind, a migration pattern, something like that. If you look up my name,
Mm-hmm.
it pops up in online.
Yeah.
So that was the PhD. But then, and then the PhD, you know, having to interview women about their own lives, Jamaican women, they will talk about everybody but themselves. The men, on the other hand, oh, they're going to tell me everything. How much woman they have, how much woman they sleep with. They're going to tell me everything. But I found out as I studied more, I realized why the women would not talk to me. Because as another Jamaican woman, they don't want me to judge them. So it was
Mm-hmm.
very hard to find out certain things. Like I was interested if the women up here had a man. One person told me nobody else would ever even go near there. They just go to work and they're fine. So anyway, when the dissertation, so for the dissertation now, I had to do other things beside interview. I went back to Jamaica to live for 3 years. And I listened to the radio and I read the newspapers and I was all go to the plays, got involved because I had left there a long time and I wanted
Yeah.
to get the feeling of the society. So,
Right.
no, my professor was white and Jewish, my chair of my committee. And she could not understand why I'm quoting Louise Bennett and why I'm quoting songs, reggae music and plays. She couldn't understand. She said that is not sociology. So I struggled, I fought her. And at the last minute, she signed off on the dissertation. She said to me, I am only signing this so as not to hold back your career. I said, thank you. I grabbed it and ran to put it in. And do you know, afterwards, I kept getting these emails. Your thesis has been downloaded so many times, so many times. Till now, it's 11,000 and something times
What?
been downloaded. I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a scam. So there was this other guy who had graduated. He did finance, my friend. And so I said to him, have you been getting these emails about your thesis, your dissertation being downloaded? He said, no. I said, well, my own, I get it all. He said, well, you wrote about marriage and women. What do you expect? I wrote about
Mm-hmm.
finance and money. Nobody cares.
Mm. But I really enjoyed your book though, and some of the, it's good that you made it resonate so much. When you talked about the plays and and things that, because it really does, at least from what I remember of the plays, I don't know how they are now, but that really captures, the playwriters really capture an aspect of Jamaican culture. But they say art imitates life, so that's what and I'm guessing that you because you listened or read the plays, your principal influencers in your academic were based on those art forms.
Well, the thing is, it's sociology. And so when I realized much later, in fact, just looking back, I should have done anthropology because that's culture. But nobody ever explained to me. I didn't know the difference, and I just got into the sociology and stayed there. But I think if I
Mm,
anthropology, I'd have finished long time because that was the cultural aspect that came in was the one my chair of my committee could not understand or
yeah.
didn't like or whatever it was she did. You know what I
Eh,
mean?
and then she was probably trained from a sociological
Yes.
perspective, as opposed to if we had had a different chair who from an anthropological, she would have gotten it.
Yes,
Or
yes.
your proactive book, Marriage, Jamaican Style, came out of your thesis. How did this happen to choose this topic? How did you happen to choose this topic?
Well, after it had been downloaded all these times, I thought, I'm not, I only did the dissertation to write the book. I wanted to put it out there and I wanted to be interviewed on profile on a Sunday evening by Mr. Ian.
Oh, Ian Boyan, did he ever do it?
Nope, I didn't
No.
finish in time. He died. I didn't finish in time. No,
Yeah, he did.
that was my only ambition to be interviewed by Mr. Boyne on profile. And Barry Shavans was going to be one of my readers. He died. I took 15 years to write this dissertation because I was teaching, I was mothering, I was grandmothering, I was doing everything. But
What about the lady, the one who replaced Ian, the one with the dreads? She's
uh,
not interested. You would think a female and all that.
no, I think it. I tried to get the I tried to get the book to her, but I think she had just given up. I think it. I don't know who it is now. I got a link the other day, and I sent an email, and I sent a copy of the book, and I haven't heard
Mm,
anymore of the woman who is in charge of profiles. So I don't know. Maybe
yeah.
one of these days it will yet happen. But when I stopped teaching college now, just recently, I decided, why don't I just write the book? I'm going to take out all the sociological stuff and I'm just going to write about the marriage. And I'm going to call it Marriage Jamaican Style. And
But
so
it.
my grandson designed the cover for me. And he
Oh,
designed
okay.
it before I finished writing. And when I saw
Really?
the cover, I said, that's it. See, the woman is leaving her shadow behind. She's leaving something behind. The man has his hands in his pockets. He's not going nowhere. I thought it was the most beautiful cover I'd ever seen. And I had to finish writing the book to match the cover.
That was inspirational. And then, with each chapter, you would talk about. It was like an intro where you would, and some of them weren't Jamaicans. They were like, I remember the Saint Lucia guy, and so it wasn't really just a Jamaican, but it was a Caribbean thing too, because you did use other um Caribbean people in the beginning, you
Yes,
know?
I did talk about migration generally at the beginning,
Yeah.
and then I focus it on the Jamaicans mostly. But it's as I met people and talked to people, you understand over years. Met a woman on the plane going to Jamaica one time. Just met people here and there, and I would just always talk about this topic. And it always they say, I have an auntie, I have a cousin who do it. I have a. It was always, and I realized it was something that was hidden because it's not something anybody talks about, but that it was something that was very important. Because
Yeah.
it started
It
with me
is.
sorry for the man in Jamaica, and it ended with me being sorry for a cousin of mine, a woman up here.
I
So,
see it. Yeah. And it's interesting it focused on women being the migrant person, leaving the husband behind, you know? How prominent is this practice?
well, it's not only Jamaica who does it either.
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
point and the point of that is that the migration rules are the way American migration works, a woman can more easily get in than a man. And in our case, in the Jamaican case, as you rightfully say, not everybody who comes and does domestic work or takes care of old people is a domestic worker. There are people who come and they were teachers at home or they were working
Mm-hmm.
in the bank or whatever, but they can get in. When they passed that law some years ago, that made it more difficult. But we still have the sort of what you call it now, the word of mouth trail, where somebody who's doing it say, I want to go on a vacation, so why you don't come up and work for me for 2 months or 3 months? You know what I mean? There are ways of getting here that it's easier for a woman to do. Plus, our men are proud. Let us just admit it. Our men are proud. My sister-in-law wanted my brother to work at the door of her apartment. It was never going to happen.
Mm. But
Oh, no.
in I'm going to say your family, but certainly in my family, a lot of men would do the farm working thing before the Mexicans. I mean, now it's primarily Hispanics, but before the farm working thing,
Mhm.
and when the Panama Canal was being built, they actively recruited men. So it used to be men that would do the traveling and the women stay behind, but now it's the other way around, you know?
We
And
still
it
have men coming to do farm work. We still have the men
really.
on cruise ships. We still have the men doing things, but it's like for a 8 month span and then they go home or whatever it is, or 6 months and they go home. We still have that. But back in the day, you're perfectly right. In England and in Central America, it was the men. And I even tell the story in the book about my girlfriend whose father left for England back in the day and never came home and wanted his wife to join him, and she
Yeah.
refused to go. And he married
Hmm.
somebody over there, and that was it. He never
And
dissolved.
didn't tell her. And didn't tell her.
He didn't
And,
dissolve his marriage in Jamaica at all. He just disappeared and married somebody else.
yeah, somebody else. Yeah, it's interesting as it focused on women being the migrating person. A better life is a motivating factor.
Mhm.
What other factors made women lead the lead agent here?
Well, Jamaican women work hard. Jamaican women are ambitious. Younger women come, as you say, for a better life. A better life usually for the younger women who come and they either go to school or they just work. Like I have one now who is working. She's working. The other day I got in touch with her after all these years after writing the book. I sent her a copy. She was so excited. But she's working because her husband in Montego Bay, they now finished building the house, but now she want the car. And after she get the car, then she going home. So that's one thing. But then the older people who would come to take care of grandchildren, because you know, childcare is a major problem in America.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the older women come, and I realized that is also in my Trinidadian friend came to America to look after her grandchildren. So it happened
Mm-hmm.
like that. So, and then as I probed further, I realized what my father had said. Some come to get away.
Yeah, they're just a peace of mind because I mean, just because you get people get married for all sorts of reasons, and then when you're in the marriage, it's a complete. In Jamaica, let me say, "Simi and come live with me," are two different sicken. So
Mhm.
when you find out, you don't know if you really want to be there, and I guess migration is an option if you can get it.
And you don't
Can
have
you?
to divorce. You just can just come, and
Right.
you're still respectable. And I know people who still go home for Christmas and send birthday card for the husband and send birthday card Christmas time and go down once a year. They still misses whatever it is, and so you don't have to divorce because divorce was looked down upon. It still is some quarters in Jamaica.
Yeah, yeah. I
It's
think
a
it depends on the socioeconomic grouping, though. Because I find Jamaica to be much more classist. Stemming from the British.
yes, that
So
is.
can you share the top three findings in your work?
Well, I was wondering if I have three. I was kind of thinking what they were after, I thought about it. One thing was that the men in Jamaica are basically very happy to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And the women here want to go home. A lot of them want to go home, but they can't go home because their family is now here, their children and their grandchildren are now here.
Mm-hmm.
Because whereas here you have things for seniors, which is lacking in Jamaica,
Yes,
and,
yes.
and they are concerned about the crime and they are concerned about the medical facilities.
Right. When you're older, do you have more?
Right, or the
Yeah. And
so
if you don't have that option, like I know some people, they'll come to Jamaica in the winter, fall, winter, and then come back spring, summer, and then they're able to take care of all their medical needs, you know? And
right,
so that's
right.
an option there. Is there any policy recommendation that you are making from your findings?
Well, in the conclusion of my book, I said that um, I asked a question, what can be done to encourage wives who want to return to their husbands but are afraid to go home? And I say, published positive interviews of returned residents, especially women, regarding the resettling process, including government arrangements and activities for senior citizens, would certainly be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Thing that I thought was very important. And
Yeah.
just, I really put it out there. My last phrase is really the important one. When I said, my last sentence, I say, studying this migration pattern opened a window on married Jamaican style. My hope is that other researchers will open a door. That's why I wanted to go on profile, because I want to start a conversation. I want to
Mm-hmm.
look at Jamaican marriage. I think we have not, when I first started my work, my research, I could have found 200 books on American marriage. I couldn't find nothing on Jamaican marriage initially. Because,
Mm-hmm.
and I realized the reason is because coming from slavery, we have all these different ways of coupling that are not legal marriage. You have visiting relationship, you have outside woman, you have all kind of things happening.
Yeah.
So
Wifey and matey.
that is it. And so our researchers have not focused on Jamaican marriage. And I
But
think it's
yeah, it's interesting that you said you found a lot of books about this from the American, but which American? I mean, African Americans have a different experience than, say, European Americans. So, and the fact that their ancestors were slavery and these type of things, that could have we could experience some of those things too in the Jamaican experience, simply because of the remnants of slavery. So that was interesting.
that is true, but the society on the whole here in America sort of not nowadays because the young people not getting married, but a little while ago, it was that marriage was kind of something you aspired to, and
Hmm.
they aspired to it too, but it's not a public aspiration. It's
Right.
not quite the same. Mhm.
Yeah. So who should be considering getting a copy of your fine work? Who do you think should get that?
You know, everybody who has ever been married wants to be married. All Jamaicans should
Or
read.
considering it. So
But
the whole
anyway,
gamut. Well,
migration,
that's good.
migration.
Hmm. Yeah,
Don't-
and this and what I like about your book, it's very unique because I've never thought of it from that angle. Even though that would resonate with me and other Jamaican women in terms of the marriage, you know? So I enjoyed the book because it did stimulate conversation in an aspect that no one is thinking about or thought about. I mean, it's there, but we haven't thought about it. What following on your work can we expect from your fine pen?
Oh boy, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, time will tell, but we want you to purchase. We want the public to purchase this book. And I say it's a quick read, it'll keep you engaged. And I because there's so many examples, different examples of marriage variation, you will find at least one story that will resonate with you. So it's an easy read and you'll find something that will resonate with you. So let's support this sister and buy up our book. I'll make sure eat our food. Okay. All right.
And you
And
know, I want to say for the men, I want to say that a man read it and told me that he liked it because he thought it was, what's the word he used? Compassionate. But Sanji's, my friend Sanji's father read it twice, read it once and
mhm.
said he was going to read it again because it made him think. So I actually called him and asked him, what did it make you think? And he said, you know, I can't really put my hand on it, but it made me think, and I'm going to read it again.
There you go. And finally, can you share or part with our audience a gem of wisdom?
You know, I was thinking about that, and I think what I think is, what I always tell my children, I tell everybody, I say, you plan as if you have 100 years, but you live as if you have today, which means you are focused on your destination, but you have to focus on your journey. So a lot of people who come here, who they're aiming, like this girl who has been going home. The other day I said to her, look, forget about the car and go to your husband. You're thinking about your destination, but your journey to get to the destination, you are not as concerned about. And you might never get to that destination because we
Hmm.
know who retire and die the next morning. No, you plan as if you have 100 years, but you live as if you have today, which means you're in the moment, enjoying your journey.
Enjoy the journey. That is so true. So to learn about Jamaican diaspora, visit JamaicanDiaspora.com. To learn about Chris Daly, visit ChrisDaly360.com. And if you'd like to contact this wonderful author, her email is bookEDH@yahoo.com. We really enjoyed spending time with you. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.